Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a reading wrap up. And in this reading wrap up, I'm going to tell you the 25 books that I read in February and also recommend you books based on that book. I had a few different reasons for picking out books last month. One of them was a video project that I'm doing every month where I read a booktuber's favorites, and last month was Books and Lala. So I read Knock Knock Open Wide by Neil Sharpson, and this was like a sapphic folklore gothic horror. It was so good. I think it will be one of my favorite books of the year. And I would recommend it for fans of The Starving Saints, which is not out yet, but I think they're really comparable. Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth and The Horror by David Sodergren. The other book that I read that I don't have is Sky Full of Elephants by Sibyl Campbell. This imagines a world where all the white people have died and how society would adapt to that. It's an apocalyptic type of story. It's getting back to your culture kind of story. I don't have a whole lot of recommendations that tie in with it. I would recommend Parable of the Sower and vice versa. If you liked one, you might like the other, although I did like Parable of the Sower a lot better. And while we're here, let's talk about Parable of the Sower. I love this. This is one of my favorite apocalyptic stories of all time. We're following a girl starting in her teens when this apocalypse, this climate crisis starts to happen, and follow her for a few years. It's a duology. I cannot wait to read the second one. I really, really like this. And if you like the Fifth Season trilogy, I would also recommend it for this one. The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. I think I struggled a little bit with this just because in America we're kind of like dealing with it in real life. It did not feel like a sci-fi dystopian, it just felt like nonfiction, unfortunately. But this is about a world where the police dictate what we can and can't remember, and things disappear once they outlaw them. And I think this book took it to a place that I really enjoyed. Like, the ending really made me enjoy this book more. And I think I did struggle a little bit because we are seeing the narrator's book too. Like, she's writing a book while this is happening, and I just don't really care for a book within a book. That's not something that I typically enjoy. And I'm going to recommend you a book that's not out yet, but it's out on Tuesday. So I think this and The Dream Hotel go hand in hand really well. If you like one, you'll probably like the other one. And finally, we have How to Become the Dark Lord and Die Trying by Django Wexler. This was so much fun. It was raunchy, it was kind of stupid, and I loved it, and I cannot wait for the second one. I thought that this was so much fun. I laughed, and I was super invested in it, even though it's just kind of like a fun story. It's very much like, feels like a video game. And one that I definitely see similarities to, like there's levels, there's this kind of like weird magic system that's happening, is Princess Florinda and the 40 Flight Tower. I think that if you enjoy one or the other, you would enjoy the other. Now I'm going to move on to all of the books that I did like with buddy reads or book clubs, that kind of thing. I read The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin, and I love the Broken Earth trilogy, and I really like this too, but they feel very different. It almost feels like different authors. There's so much humor in this, really dry humor, and I think the Broken Earth trilogy is just such a dark and bleak scenario that it's hard to have humor in it as well, but N.K. Jemisin's humor really shined in this book, which I really enjoyed. And it's about how the boroughs of New York City basically become personified. They have human avatars, and they have to work together to save the city, to defend against these like eldritch creatures. It kind of goes in a sci-fi direction that I really enjoyed. Maybe Meddling Kids by Edgar Quintero, because we are presented with a theme that we are familiar with here, New York City. They're Scooby-Doo, and then eldritch creatures happen and they have to defend against them. That's the best comparison that I have for this one though. Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I love this duology. It's actually a trilogy. There's a third book coming out, and I read these with Brie. It was so good. I cannot wait to read the third book. I cannot wait for V.E. Schwab. I do think that these are my favorite that I've read so far, and probably just my favorite of what she has out. This is about Eli and Victor. They are two college roommates who discover how to become an EO, or an extraordinary human, essentially a superhero. And the key is to die and then come back. You're not really in control of what power you get. And there's this begrudging found family. It's so incredibly morally gray. And yeah, I do want them to kiss in book 3. I don't read a whole lot of superhero books. I don't read a whole lot of superhero fantasy, but I would compare this to The Boys in the sense that there are morally gray superheroes, and that's just like probably what would happen. And then with D, I read The Witch of Whisper Vale, which is the second book, but I also read Pinquickle's Folly by R.A. Salvatore. These are adventure stories. They start off slow, and then by the last third I'm invested, which is not like my favorite way to read a book. They definitely feel like someone who wanted to write a D&D campaign, but then wrote a book series instead. However, I get so invested in the last third or so of the book that I will be continuing the series. I did really like them, and that's kind of frustrating, but I will be continuing them. If I had to compare these to something, maybe the Bloodsworn Saga, but like not really. I like the Bloodsworn Saga a lot more than I like these. I was more invested, but there are strong female badass characters and pirate type of situations and a found family, common goal with like a ragtag group of people. If you loved the Bloodsworn Saga, I think that you would like these. If you liked the Bloodsworn Saga, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend. I also did a buddy read with Sarah of Sorrowland by River Solomon. It was my first of their books, and I really liked it. It was a very dark fantasy. It's about a woman who escapes this cult and has to take care of her twins in the woods and just kind of figure out who she is. There's like this spore aspect to it. I liked it a lot. I think I would recommend it for fans of books like Hell Followed With Us or maybe Mexican Gothic. I read a couple arcs last month. Listen to Your Sister by Nina Viel. I thought that this was a really fun, it was more of a family drama than it was horror for me, but when we did get horror, I really enjoyed those aspects. The family dynamic, I'm an only child, so I don't know what a sibling dynamic is supposed to look like, but the sibling dynamic in this book made me so angry. The way that her brothers treated her made me so mad, and it gets compared to Jordan Peele films. It's a very good comparison. The other arc that I read was They Bloom at Night by Trang Thanh Tan. I liked this, but the books that I'm about to compare it to, I liked a lot more. But if you like these books, I would say read this because you're probably really gonna like it. It's about a teenager who is just not comfortable in their own skin, doesn't like their body, and they are also just experiencing the apocalypse kind of, I think, in like the Florida area. They are around a town with a lot of water, and they're just trying to survive with their mom and also find a way to love themselves in this apocalyptic situation. And it's so heartbreaking, and so I'm convincing myself to bump up my rating almost, I think, but I really liked it, and I would recommend it for fans of Hell Followed With Us, Don't Let the Forest In, and even Our Wives Under the Sea. I think that there's some parallels there. I got sent the second book in the Branded Season duology. The first book I think is just the Branded, and then the second book is the Rising, and this is a romantasy duology, and I just really didn't care for it, to be honest. The first book, the best part was the developing relationship between the two, and then they're apart for most of the second book. And I just had a really hard time carrying. I couldn't even really tell you what it's about anymore, so this was just kind of a dud for me. My nonfiction of the month was Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement by Angela Y. Davis. And I don't know if you're not supposed to rate nonfiction. I usually do. Maybe not memoirs. I think not rating someone's life circumstances less than 5 stars is kind of rude. But this is more of a collection of essays and interviews and speeches that Angela has given. And a lot of what she says I either did not know or introduced me a new way of thinking about something that probably I never would have come up with on my own. It's such a short book. It's only 150 pages, but it packs so much information in it. So many just like good pieces of information. I loved this, and I want to read more from her. I think that it is especially important right now. Reflecting on the importance of Black feminism, intersectionality, and prison abolitionism for today's struggles, Davis discusses the legacies of previous liberation struggles, from the Black freedom movement to the South African anti-apartheid movement. She highlights connections and analyzes today's struggles against state terror from Ferguson to Palestine. And I did not know a lot of what was in here. I would absolutely recommend this to anyone wanting to learn more about social justice. I'm also starting that journey myself. I started with hood feminism, which felt really accessible, and I think that this is a very comfortable next step in terms of stepping up the knowledge that you are consuming, not comfortable in the content and just like knowing how unjust a lot of things are. But I would definitely recommend it. My last section of books was all books written by Black authors. I made an effort to read as many Black stories as I could last month, and I didn't read solely Black books, mostly because I had other obligations, but I did really enjoy what I was able to get to. I read Bloodmarked in anticipation of Oathbound, and this was so good. I liked Legendborn. I gave it like 4.75 stars. I loved Bloodmarked. This was so good. I also need to put in my little sticky tabs because like I did annotate it, but I just love Bree. I love Bree so much. I love this world. It is about a college secret society in a very white college in the South, and it's kind of surrounding like King Arthur and his knights and their descendants. They have this magic, and also Bree is both a descendant of that and then of root magic, which is a type of magic typically used by enslaved Black people in America. She is a descendant of them as well, and the magic system is so good. The relationships are so good. I can't say enough good things about this, and I cannot wait for Oathbound. I am so excited. I would also recommend this to you if you enjoyed Ninth House or Babel, or I'm gonna say The Cruel Prince, which feels bold, but that's how I feel. The Space Between Worlds by Mike Kane Johnson is about a woman who is from a poor rural area but gets a job where she can go to different parallel universes. And essentially the only requirement to go to these parallel worlds is that your doppelganger is dead. And her doppelganger is not very good at staying alive. She's only alive in a few other parallel universes, and she's collecting data for the company in her world. The sapphic relationship in this was so good. I thought that the sci-fi aspects were excellent, and I'm realizing I haven't really read a book like this and don't really have any comparisons to recommend you. The Children of Blood and Bone by Atomi Adeyemi was so good. I was surprised by how much I liked it because I'm a little iffy on YA fantasy, but I love this. This is a world where these magic wielders, their magic was taken away from them. And we're following Zaylee for the most part, and she is trying to get money for her family. And while she's trying to do this, she also accidentally rescues a princess. They become friends, and in this quest to get magic back, a lot of bad things happen because that's just how a YA fantasy goes. The relationships in this book are very complex, especially for a YA. I really like this. If you like Legendborn, I would recommend this. It's not like Dark Academia, but I think there's a lot of parallels to this for sure. And I guess I need to read more YA fantasy because that's the only one I can think of. Blood Trials by Annie Davenport. This was so good. I love this so much. I don't think enough people are talking about this. It is about a girl who's basically going into this military academy in order to figure out why her grandfather died, but she also has a secret. She is an Icena has blood magic, which she could totally be killed for. I thought that the relationships in this were so toxic and so good. The trial aspect, the military academy-ness of it all was a very fun thing to follow. It was super bloody, super gory. A lot of the aspirants, they call them, the students, died. I don't think that this pulled a whole lot of punches, and I would recommend it for fans of The Will of the Many or The Shadow of What Was Lost. Basically, if you like James Ellington stuff but want it to have a little bit more of a sci-fi aspect, you would eat this up. The Dead Cattail Assassins by P. Djeli Clark I did not love so much. It was fine. It's about Naveen, who is a dead cattail assassin. She was resurrected in order to basically perform these hits on different people, and she cannot die. But she finds a version of her past self in this world, and it creates a whole slew of problems. I thought that this got a little long. It's only this big, and I thought it got a little long, and it was just fine. I'm gonna compare this book to Zombieland and just not explain any further, but that's how it felt to me. Immortal Dark by Tigis Girma. This was excellent. This was my first 5-star romantasy in like 6 months. I loved it. This was so Buffy and Spike coded. I loved their relationship. We are following Keaton, and she has to go to a college, live in this house with this vampire who she thinks killed her sister in order to figure out what happened to her sister and avenge her. She develops friendships with these students at this school, but it's also so bloodthirsty. It's an all-black cast, and it's way too spicy to be considered YA, but it technically is. I love this so much. I think that if you liked The Zodiac Academy but wanted way better writing and something a little more serious, you would really, really like this. The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. I am obsessed with this. This was so good. This is like an ultimate revenge story. We follow Tao, who, in order to avenge his father's death, joins this army and goes through all of these like rounds of training and battles in order to get better at training, but he just like can't quite get there. So in order to continue training, he trains in his dreams against these demons that will kill him over and over again no matter what, but it's the only way that he can get good enough at fighting to achieve the goals that he has set for himself. And I can't wait to get to the second book. I love this. I think that if you liked the Poppy War or again the Bloodsworn Saga, I'm going to continue recommending the Bloodsworn Saga because I love it. You would also like this. Those are the 25 books that I read this month. These are kind of just like my stats if you're curious about that kind of thing. I had such a good reading month. I had a really high average rating, higher than I normally do. I hope to carry that into March, but I don't have super high hopes. I'm reading a lot of arcs, a lot of authors that I've never read from before. I hope that your reading month for February was excellent and that you have an excellent March. Let me know the best book that you read in February, and also leave me a cat emoji for Dead Cattail Assassins. And thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, like and subscribe. I am trying to do something with this channel, and I will see you next time. Bye!